In 2056, the world's environment has deteriorated beyond a critical state. Only the rich can afford to live in air domes, which filter the contaminated outside air. Big corporations have replaced governments and states, and conflicts are solved by their corporate armies. All attempts to find refuge in space have failed. The Nebra Corporation owns Rubicon, the last extraterrestrial research base still searching for solutions to the environmental crisis. One day, Nebra sends Commander Hannah and chemist Gavin to check on Rubicon by traveling on the Navicon shuttle. However, reaching Rubicon gets complicated because for some reason it isn't at the coordinators that appear on the screen. Hannah has to pull a very dangerous maneuver to get the shuttle to lock with the station, where the crew thinks the mistake comes from the Navicon systems. They also aren't very happy to notice Hannah is military, as proven by the chip on her neck. After requesting a report to know why the Navicon lost course and seeing the algae farm, Hannah settles in her room and calls her sister Knopf, who is also in the military. Both of them grew up poor and became soldiers just for the pay. Sadly, the conversation is cut short when Knopf is called over to take care of an emergency. Later, the crew of the Rubicon has a toast to celebrate that most of them get to return to Earth now that Hannah and Gavin are here to replace them, and 3 more people should be flying in soon. The head of the research team, Dr. Dimitri, is friendly and invites them to play cards, but his son Danilo is hostile towards Gavin because he's from a rich family that lives safely in a dome. Hannah interrupts their argument before it can escalate, then goes to see the report the crew has brought her. It turns out the flight route for tomorrow has been changed because of a strange fog cluster in the northern hemisphere, right over the city where most Green Fighters activists are located. There have been hundreds of casualties already, and this upsets Gavin, who used to be part of that activist group as well. Hannah approves the new flight route before going after Gavin, who has fled to the communications room to try to access Earth's news reports to no avail. Reminding him she has direct contact with Nebra, Hannah points out she could make some calls, but Gavin turns her down because he doesn't trust intel that comes from the corporations. The next day, the entire crew leaves except for Dimitri, Gavin, and Hannah. Danilo takes some other cultures with him as requested by Nebra, and Dimitri swears they'll last the entire flight, but his demeanor is kinda awkward. Afterward, Hannah calls her superiors to give them an update, pointing out the mother cultures they've sent have probably been manipulated. The Nebra bosses don't care anymore. They inform Hannah there's been a change of plans and she must get the Icarus plan ready in a few days, so Hannah will have to work faster on studying how Dimitri has managed to create an algae system that provides air and food. This is easier said than done, because whenever Hannah tries to take a closer look at the farm in secret, Dimitri is there to be sure she isn't touching anything she shouldn't. Sometime later, they receive a message from the crew, who are still in transit. They're running blind and unable to contact any base on Earth, so Hannah tries to call herself, but she doesn't get an answer either. Thinking it may be a problem with the optical unit not sending a signal, Hannah decides to spacewalk to check their systems, but it's too late. The crew screams through the intercoms, saying they're burning down before the connection is lost. When Hannah turns around, she discovers Earth is getting completely covered by a brown fog. When she returns to the station, Hannah tries to contact ground control again, to no avail. Dimitri grieves his son and Hannah goes to check her personal tablet to find a message from Knopf, who explains Earth is in the middle of chaos and all units are being called back to evacuate people to bunkers. 2 days pass and Hannah is still unable to contact anyone. Gavin is trying to analyze the atmosphere and find an explanation for this fog. It could be the reason why they had trouble navigating when they arrived and why the crew's route had been changed, but it doesn't make sense for it to spread this fast around the planet. Dimitri won't leave his room, so Hannah tries to bring him food and ask about the algae, but Dimitri just angrily sends her away. Sometime later, Hannah decides to work on a new radio using old parts she finds around the station, but interrupts her tinkering when she notices Gavin acting strange. It turns out the computer has finished the analysis of Earth's atmosphere, and the results have scared him into wanting to end things for himself. Hannah rushes to help and Dimitri finally comes out because it's an emergency, so the two of them manage to give Gavin CPR to keep him alive. Afterward, an unconscious Gavin is taken to the infirmary so Dimitri can give him proper treatment, although he doesn't truly care if Gavin lives or not. Hannah calls him out for his attitude and reveals she knows the algae system is more advanced than what his reports say, which gets Dimitri to admit he's been hiding information because he thinks she's spying. When Hannah points out it's not spying if the project belongs to Nebra because they funded it, Dimitri gets angry and explains the project's his and Danilo's. When Gavin wakes up later, he rushes to the computers and explains to the others what he's discovered. The fog is toxic, which means everyone on Earth is dead. At that moment, Gavin begins having a panic attack, so Dimitri sedates him before telling Hannah they're safe here in the station. The algae project was successful, meaning they should have air and food to survive for a long time. Hannah decides to continue working on that radio, because surely there must be survivors in the domes. After another spacewalk to redirect the antenna, Hannah finally gives the radio a try, but once again they get no answer. When Gavin wakes up, he explains the fog probably comes from a chain reaction caused by the permafrost gases that environmentalists have been warning people about for years. There are some bunkers with oxygen tanks that may have survived, but those refugees will die as well once supplies run out. Gavin hates the idea of living forever in this metal can with only 2 other people, but fortunately, Dimitri stops him from doing something drastic again by pointing out that if he dies, so will Hannah and Dimitri. It turns out the system is designed for a crew of 6, the people produce CO2 and the system converts it back into oxygen. The bare minimum for efficient gas exchange is 3 people. Gavin accepts to stay alive, and later, he bonds with Hannah over how they feel they wasted their lives training for something that has failed, and the 2 of them end up spending the night together. Some weeks later, Hannah discovers a weird brown color on the algae farm. Dimitri tells her it's normal and not to worry, but after she leaves the room, he takes a sample to run some tests. The results clearly bother him, but instead of telling the others, he invites them to have a night of gambling and drinking. Gavin finally learns Hannah was spying for Nebra, and Dimitri explains why he had sent fake samples with Danilo. Months ago Nebra changed their contract, saying the new algae system should be exclusive for dome dwellers. Dimitri didn't mind and was ready to take the money, but Danilo was furious and turned them down, already planning to release it in the public domain. Sometime later, Hannah is throwing up in secret and discovers the weird brown substance is spreading through the algae. At that moment, something incredible comes through the communicators. A group of Nebra survivors has finally managed to make contact. There are 300 people left in that dome, and their oxygen will run out soon, so they need the algae project. Hannah is surprised they know about it, which means the survivors are all CEOs and their families. Meanwhile, Dimitri is checking the algae food gel and discovers the brown contamination has reached their supplies as well. His examination is interrupted by Hannah and Gavin, who come to tell him about the survivors. It turns out there are openings in the fog that allowed the domes to send their signal, and they should allow a ship to go through safely as well. The duo wants to rescue the refugees, but Dimitri refuses. The crew took Navicon with them when they left, so flying without it is a death wish. Gavin insists it's their responsibility to help these people, but Dimitri doesn't care because it's their fault that Danilo is dead. After Gavin stomps out of the room in fury, Hannah begins feeling dizzy, and Dimitri begins suspecting it may have to do with the brown goo. He decides to take a blood sample from Hannah under the excuse of a routine checkup, and Hannah uses the moment to try to change his mind again. However, Dimitri just points out that these CEOs only care about themselves. Hannah and Gavin discuss the matter in private and decide they'll be leaving with or without Dimitri, so they'll take the samples by force if necessary. To stop them, Dimitri finally reveals how far the brown goo has spread and explains it's Hannah's fault. The algae feed from the crew's urine in the station's nutrient cycle. They also are sensitive to hormones. This can only mean one thing: Hannah is pregnant. Hannah refuses to believe it because soldiers are supposed to be infertile, but Dimitri explains the chip may be malfunctioning because she's lost contact with the ground base for a long time. The algae are going to be fine, but Hannah's baby won't be if she goes down there. This isn't enough to make her change her mind, but it does change Gavin's, and now he wants to stay as well. Hannah begins spending long hours on the simulator to practice landing the station safely through the small gap in the fog. Gavin tries to talk to her and hears her out when she says the station isn't a place to raise a baby, inspiring him to accept to go back to Earth with her. Dimitri can't survive alone in the station, so he has no choice but to go with them. The trio gets ready to leave, but the shuttle isn't working well. The cooling systems have shut down for some reason, and now the shuttle's gas tanks are overheating. It'll blow out any minute now, so Hannah disconnects it from the station and lets it float away until it explodes far from them. This means they're now stuck in the station forever. Gavin is angry with Hannah for not trying to think of something else first, thus he'll send a message to Earth with the news alone. The CEOs tell Gavin he should ask Hannah about Icarus, so she proceeds to explain it was her actual mission. Once she put her hands on the algae samples, she was supposed to bring down the entire lab, which can be ejected and flown down separately. However, it's not made for passengers and it can't be steered. As dangerous as it may be, Gavin still thinks they should try it because 300 people are more important than 3, but Hannah stays hesitant. Later, while Gain sleeps, Hannah discovers a trail of algae on the wall and follows it into a panel where she discovers the cooling system had been sabotaged. Hannah comforts Dimitri, who admits he did it, but his intention had only been to delay, not to explode. Hannah calls him a coward and makes him get the Icarus system ready, which Dimitri knows about simply because he studied the station in his free time. But if Hannah knew about it all along, Dimitri realizes Nebra sent her on purpose because they knew a catastrophe was coming and told nobody about it. The CEOs had their bunkers and didn't care if others survived as well, so Dimitri is sure that if they had to share the algae with the crew, they wouldn't. Doubt grows in Hannah's mind. When they call ground base to tell them they'll be dropping down with the lab, Hannah asks to talk to one of the soldiers that worked on the evacuations. The representative explains the bunker has limited space for the CEOs and their families, so after the soldiers finished their duty, they were left outside. This means Knopf is dead, and a devastated Hannah leaves the room to have a breakdown in private. Gavin finds her later and tries to convince her to finish the mission, but Hannah has changed her mind and refuses to save the lives of people who see other humans as cannon fodder. The station is a better life for her baby than the slum, but Gavin will never understand that. It's easy for him to talk about changing the world when he had daddy's money to back up his projects. Afterward, Hannah works on removing the chip from her head before resting, but her nap is interrupted by some weird noises. It's Gavin, who has tied Dimitri up and is planning to drop the lab with or without Hannah. Seeing no other choice, Hannah joins them, but at the last second, she pushes Gavin away and tears off the Icarus system. She knows how to fix it but she won't, so a furious Gavin leaves while Hannah frees Dimitri. Later, Hannah finds a message from Earth on the computer and deletes it without listening to it before turning off the communicators. Then she goes looking for Gavin, but unfortunately, there is bad news waiting. Gavin has sacrificed himself and the only thing Hannah finds is his body. After Hannah and Gavin say their goodbyes, they release Gavin's body into space. Seeing as they need 3 people to produce oxygen, Hannah now wants to start fixing Icarus as soon as possible, suspecting Gavin sacrificed himself to oblige them to go back to Earth in order to survive. Dimitri's shocked to hear this and has a breakdown because the 3 people excuse had been a lie to stop Gavin from doing precisely this. Years pass, and Hannah has a kid that she names Knopf after her sister. One evening, the child is wandering around and finds the old radio, which suddenly comes to life with a message from Earth. There's a group of survivors in the south that has finally come out of the bunkers, and they invite Knopf to join them. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.